It was a pretty good year for Texas A&M in year one under Mike Elko, but what does the projection look like for 2025? We're going to break that down for you and show you the schedule here in this video. Texas A&M's schedule in 2025 is going to look very similar to their schedule in 2024. The home and away just flipped, and that's the way it is in the SEC and also with Notre Dame. This time they're going to go on the road to Notre Dame. So let's break down that schedule, see when all the games occur. Here is that full schedule. We'll start with the non-conference. They'll play UTSA, Utah State, on the road at Stanford, and then on the road at Notre Dame, I should say, and at home for Samford. So, of course, the one big non-conference game there against Notre Dame, but other than that, pretty easy non-conference slate for the Aggies. How about the home and away in the SEC? Auburn, Mississippi State, Florida, and South Carolina all at home, and then you got Arkansas, LSU, Missouri, and Texas on the road. So, it's the same thing they had last year. It's the same conference opponents. You just flip them. You flip the home and away. So, really not a lot to look at there. Let's see where the games occur, though, because there is definitely something interesting with this schedule. So, they've got UTSA first on August 30th, then Utah State on September 6th. Then they'll play that big non-conference game against Notre Dame week 3, September 13th. That one, again, will be on the road, and that'll be a tough environment, of course. And then they get their first bye week after that on September 20th. So 3 non-conference games, and then you get into SEC play. You have 5 SEC games in between the 2 byes. They have Auburn on September 27th. That should be a really good game. Of course, it was a great game last year. Mississippi State next on October 4th, again at home. You like the Texas A&M's chances in that game. Then you got Florida on October 11th at home. That should be a really, really good game. And what do you notice here? 3 home games in a row. Their first 3 conference games are all at home. And then they play 3 road games in a row. So that is very interesting, the way this schedule sets up. Then you got Arkansas on October 18th, again on the road. That's not going to be played in Arlington any longer. It's no longer a neutral site game. It is going to be home and away from now on. And that's going to be a great matchup. Seeing Texas A&M actually go on the road to play Arkansas. And then you've got LSU on October 25th, also on the road. Very tough place to play, of course. Then they get that second bye week. And then after that, they'll play Missouri on November 8th on the road. Back home for South Carolina on November 15th. And then at home for Samford on November 22nd. They close things out with Texas on the road November 29th. So, yeah, that's the big thing that jumps out with this schedule. It's just the fact that they play 3 SEC games in a row at home and then 3 road games in the SEC. That's just, we don't really see that with these schedules. I don't know why they did that. It's definitely interesting. They don't have back-to-back weeks where they're on the road, or they don't have 3, I should say. They don't have 3 weeks in a row on the road because you do have a bye week in between LSU and Missouri, but 3 games in a row on the road, Arkansas, LSU, and Missouri. That is just, it's very interesting with this schedule. So yeah, Notre Dame in the non-conference, obviously going to make this, a very respectable non-conference schedule, even though they don't really play anyone else. But in the SEC, how does it stack up with the other teams? Well, their opponents, their win percentage from last year was 48%. Texas A&M's SEC opponents this year went 31-33 last season. So right there in the middle. This is not one of the toughest schedules in the SEC, but it's also not the easiest at all. So it's a pretty tough schedule, but again, not a brutal schedule. It's right there, middle of the pack for Texas A&M. It's a weird schedule because of the 3 straight home games and the 3 straight road games in the SEC. But all in all, a schedule that gives A&M a shot to have a pretty good season in 2025. Before we get to the record projection for Texas A&M, just want to let all of you know we do have a Texas A&M channel. So check that out. Link down in the description below. If you're a Texas A&M fan, go over to that channel and subscribe. What will Texas A&M's projected record be in 2025? Before we get to that, let's look back at the last 4 seasons. So this is where they were projected and where they finished. So in 2021, they were projected to go 9-3. They went 8-4. In 2022, projected to go 9-3. They went 5-7. In 2023, projected to go 7-5. They did go 7-5. Then last year, projected to go 8-4. They did go 8-4. So the last 2 seasons, our projection has actually been right on the money with Texas A&M. In 2021, missed it by a game, and then in 2022, of course, they had a very disappointing season, finished well below expectations. And again, this is not a prediction. Our predictions won't come until after spring football and all that. This is just a projection based off of our formula, and it's all based off of our tier rankings, and then of course the opponents that you play and where those opponents are in the tier rankings. So here's the schedule again. Here's the scale that we use. So Texas A&M is in tier 2. They're a tier 2 team, which means if they play a tier 3 team, or first of all, if they play any other 2 tier teams, those will be 50-50 games. Those will be in the white. If they play a tier 3 team, that game will be in the purple, 61-70. But if that game is on the road, then it drops down to a 50-50 game. So that's the way this formula works. We'll start with the easier games for the Aggies. I think you've got 4 of those: UTSA, Utah State, Mississippi State, and Samford. They should be able to take care of business in all 4 of those games, and those games will be counted as wins. All of them not the same. Of course, Mississippi State's probably much closer to 80%, whereas Samford is closer to 100%. But they all are in that green range. Then you've got Auburn and Arkansas. A couple of games where I think A&M will be favored, probably by about a touchdown or so. They should be ahead of Auburn in the preseason rankings. I don't know. Auburn probably won't be ranked at all. A&M probably will be. Plus, that game's at home. Now, Arkansas is a couple of tiers below A&M, but this game is on the road, and that's why it bumps it into this purple range. And again, that's going to be very interesting seeing those games played on campus. Excited to see this one this year. But yeah, 6 games where A&M should be favored, pretty clear favorites. And then I think there's a couple of games where they'll be clear underdogs. That's Notre Dame and Texas. I think both of these games are going to be tough. These are all tier 1 teams, plus you're playing them both on the road. Very tough matchups here for Texas A&M, and these two, those are winnable games. Don't get me wrong. That's why they're in the yellow and not in the red. But those will be tough. Those will be tough wins to get. But they don't need to win those games, really. If they win the rest of the games, if they go 10-2 and they only lose these 2 games, 10-2 gets you in the playoff. And not only that, they would only have 1 conference loss, so they're probably in the SEC championship. So very interesting there if they're able to do that. But 2 tough games, definitely with those 2. Then you've got really a bunch of 50-50 games. You've got Florida, LSU, Missouri, and South Carolina. These are really the games that could go either way. Florida, LSU, and South Carolina are all in the same tier as Texas A&M. These are tier 2 teams. Missouri, a tier 3 team, but that game's on the road, and that's why it is a 50-50 game. But yeah, you look at those 4 games, those are going to be the games that really probably decide how this season's going to go. I think if they don't beat Texas or Notre Dame, if they lose both of those games, I think it's going to be very tough for them to win every other game. So I think, first of all, you probably need to pull off an upset against Notre Dame or against Texas, because they're probably going to lose one of these other games. That's just the way it goes. It's going to be very tough to win all 4 of these 50-50 games. And even Arkansas and Auburn, those aren't guaranteed wins. So it's a pretty tough schedule. To get the projection, it kind of works out here. Let's just say they lose to Notre Dame and Texas and they split the 50-50 games. That's going to get you to our projection. That's going to get you to 8-4. Again, that is the projection. And I think that's a very fair projection with this schedule. This is a pretty tough schedule. Again, 2 games where they're going to be pretty clear underdogs. And then you got 4 games that, again, they would split if they're 50-50 games. I think they're probably going to be favored against maybe in 3 of those 4 games, Florida, Missouri, and South Carolina. Maybe they win 3 out of 4. They get to 9-3. Maybe they pull off an upset somewhere, get to 10-2. I think that's possible. Anything under 8-4, I think, is a disappointment. Anything over 8-4 is a pretty solid season for Texas A&M in 2025. So what do you guys think about Texas A&M? What's your projection? Let me know down in the comments below. And also just a reminder, memberships are now available here on the channel. You can get early access to videos like this and much more. Check it out. Link is down in the description below. Become a member today.